It's a federal holiday, but it's not an American holiday. People want to say, oh, Black history is American history. Be quiet for a minute, because Juneteenth is not about stores having sales and, no, Juneteenth is about Black self-determination. So if you're for Black self-determination, then you can certainly participate in and observe and Juneteenth. That could be anybody. But if you're not for Black self-determination, you should be quiet. And we know the United States of America is not about Black self-determination. So therefore, how in the hell could Juneteenth be an American holiday?
Welcome. You are listening to Building the Black Educated Pipeline podcast, the place where we talk to real people in the real struggle, doing the real work. I'm your host, Shayna Terrell, educator, activist, dedicated to the lifelong struggle of freedom and liberation for my people. Welcome, y'all. Today we will be talking about Juneteenth, amongst other things. Shout out to my co-conspirators who are out there watching and listening. And of course, today we are joined by none other than my Baba, Dr. Greg Carr, Associate Professor at Howard University, host of In Class with Carr, and the Black Table on the Black Star Network. What's up, Dr. Carr?
Hello, my dear, my leader, Mama Shayna. How are you? It's been too long.
I know it has been quite some time. We are so excited to have you on. We have missed you. I've missed you. I know my co-conspirators have missed you.
We all miss you. Yeah, we all miss you. But you've been raising a nation and getting folks together for the next iteration of this struggle. And so it's always good to be in community with you as we enter another summer.
Another Freedom Summer.
Always Freedom Summer. Another Freedom Summer. This is went back and looked at our conversation. I would encourage people to look at it too. The conversation we had last year on Juneteenth.
Our Juneteenth special. Yeah.
Pop up.
Yes. I was about to say some folks was big mad about that episode.
Oh, good. They should. Then if they were mad about that one, then they're going to be furious about this one. But fortunately, neither of us lives next to Mrs. Alito, so we ain't got to worry about no upside down flags or evergreen tree flags in our yard. You're going to lose, Mrs. Alito. You and your funky husband and his friend, who was a wholly owned subsidiary of billionaires, Clarence. You're going to lose. You should read a little history. It's not, you're on the losing side. But anyway, we don't live next to her, so I'm sure her head would come off the top of her neck. She can hear this, but she can't.
Yes. So as always, I just want to, I'm pretty sure there are folks who've been rocking with us for a minute. There's some folks who are just, discovering us. So just real quick, can you just tell folks what Juneteenth is?
That's a good question. What is Juneteenth?
You started on
Juneteenth is.
You started on right. You started on right. You're going exactly where I want to go. But go ahead.
Yes. Using the Africana Studies framework that we developed first for the School District of Philadelphia, and now that's a global framework we're using with the narrative platform, and beyond that in class and in a lot of other places, we would say that there are two separate answers to that. One is an answer that relates to who African people are to others, and that would be kind of like the conventional date answer. And of course, that's very simple. Juneteenth it refers to June 19th, 1865. That is the day that General Gordon Granger and his troops sailed into Galveston Bay and read what is known as General Order Number 3. General Order Number 3, which was read by one of his lieutenants, F.W. Embry, said on that day that all Blacks are free, all Negroes are free, all Africans are free. That was pursuant to the Emancipation Proclamation, which had gone into effect January 1st, 1863, and in the wake of the surrender of General Robert E. Lee to General Grant, Ulysses S. Grant, at Appomattox Courthouse down the street from here in Virginia. And that is the definition of Juneteenth. It's called Teenth, not only because it was June 19th, but because the month of June, as the Union Army moved west, it was informing people that the war was over and that Africans were free. Now, using our African Studies framework, what Juneteenth is to us, people of African descent, that's a little bit more complicated. It is a ritual of self-determination. It's a ritual of celebration. It's a ritual of assessment. It's a ritual of action. Because in the wake of that, African people began to build, continue to build, but without the shackles. And we can talk more about, what that means in terms of the fact that Africans were not free, in many ways still aren't free, but although in chattel enslavement was supposed to end on that date or before that date, in places like Texas, where the Juneteenth proclamation was read, Field Order Number 3, General Order Number 3, it continued for some people for years. For many in Texas, for at least up to a year, according to my friend and brother Gerald Horn in his book, The Counter-Revolution of 1838. But we can get more into that. So that's kind of in a shorthand, the definition of what Juneteenth is.
So basically the inner shadow slavery for Black people.
In the formal recognition of the end. And we can talk more about how that fits in a larger network of celebrations, of commemorations, everything from Emancipation Day to Memorial Day, which started as Decoration Day that African people created in South Carolina, and everything else. I like to think of Juneteenth in some ways, because now it is a federal holiday as of 2 years ago. It's really kind of like Kwanzaa meets the 4th of July, because we did not celebrate the 4th of July. Some of us, like me, still don't. But we would mark July the 5th. That's when Frederick Douglass gave his famous "What to the Slaves" the 4th of July speech. It was January the 5th. We did that deliberately to say we do not celebrate the 4th of July. But if folk want to get into great detail about it, because I know this is a pop-up, we're just kind of dropping this. I know you want to have people out there be educated about it. All the books that we talked about before when we talked about it, and all of this coming week, Juneteenth weekend, will be the 5th conversation I've had with Professor Karen Hunter about it. So if you all want to go out there on YouTube and look for hours of conversation about it, you can look at session 13 of In Class with Carr, session 67. The following year, that was 2021. We started 2020 with episode 13. Session in 2021 was 67. And then in 2022, after it became a holiday, federal holiday, and I actually was at the White House when Joe Biden signed that bill, that is in session 119. If you all go look, and we talk about the politics of that. And then last year, session 171, they had a concert at the White House, and I actually went to see that concert. My band was playing, Tennessee State's marching band. So if you want to go and look at 171, that covers last year. And here we are today. This is the capsule kickoff to Juneteenth weekend. Y'all doing something special in Philly?
There's going to be all types of celebrations and stuff. You know how Philly do. We are the over 80% Black folk. So there's actually going to be a Juneteenth parade here. So
excellent.
And yeah, I'm excited about that. That'll be really nice.
Yeah. And for folks in Philly who probably know, for the rest of the country watching this and the world watching this, Philadelphia Juneteenth celebrations go back decades. It was brother Ron Brown, who was the chair of something called the Juneteenth Committee in Philadelphia. And Philadelphia, like Buffalo, New York, like Milwaukee, Wisconsin, like Rochester and Minneapolis, St. Paul area in Minnesota, like LA, like Richmond, Virginia. There are many places whose Juneteenth celebrations go back decades. I'm talking about, for some of them, as far back as the 1950s and 60s. I'm talking about outside of Texas, outside of other places in the South. And Philadelphia is one of those places. So that now that everybody else has discovered it and it's got proclamations and government, what Philadelphia is doing is just extending a tradition that goes way, way back.
And I'll say this too. We've talked about this before, that now that Juneteenth kind of is opened up to the world, right? The commercialization of Juneteenth,
yes.
and what that means. I was cracking up. I saw somebody said, Juneteenth is not Kwanzaa in the summertime. That's not what this is.
Who said that?
Some post I read somewhere, and I just...
A Negro host, a host of African descent?
It was somebody Black.
See, the problem we have is that, in Boston, maybe about, let me see, this would have been about 30 years ago or so. Y'all can go back and look at the conversations we've had to get the exact date. But somebody created what they call a Juneteenth flag. It's red and blue with a white like exploding star in the middle. There's a star, and then encircled by what looks like a white like explosion, jagged explosion. That is considered by many the official Juneteenth flag. It's red and blue. But I've been seeing, to my everlasting joy, a lot of Juneteenth shirts and flags and posters with red, black, and green.
Green, yes.
I love it because, see, that reinforces, contrary to the opinion of a person that said it's not Kwanzaa in the summertime, that it is Kwanzaa. In fact, in the summertime, in this one sense, it's about self-determination. Yeah. In fact, when we were together last year, I couldn't put my hands on this, but I since moved a lot of stuff to storage, and I was moving some stuff around, and I was able to come across this little pamphlet by a great folklorist out of Texas, a legend, J. Mason Brewer. And he wrote an article in 1932 in Publications of the Texas Folklore Society, and they reprinted it as a pamphlet. It's called Juneteenth. I don't know if you can see. Let me see if I can get it. It's called Juneteenth by J. Mason Brewer. And J. Mason Brewer, he actually signed this one. This is one that he actually autographed. And not to me, of course, I wasn't alive. But but he said this, and I thought it was very interesting. He said, the significance of the day, Juneteenth, is so great, and the tales I've collected are so bound up with the legalized slavery in 1965, this day put an end to, that I have used Juneteenth as a title. It's a collection of stories. But he says, nobody who does not understand a Juneteenth celebration can ever understand the Negro or their songs and tales. So this is not, it's a federal holiday, but it's not an American holiday. People want to say, oh, Black history is American history. You should be quiet for a minute. Because Juneteenth is not about stores having sales and, no, Juneteenth is about Black self-determination. So if you're for Black self-determination, then you can certainly participate in and observe and Juneteenth. That could be anybody. But if you're not for Black self-determination, you should be quiet. And we know the United States of America is not about Black self-determination. So therefore, how in the hell could Juneteenth be an American holiday when you say that? Was it? Go ahead.
I think people struggle with absolutes, right? Because I think that Juneteenth is supposed to be a symbol of like freedom. So
right,
we ain't free, which right. I want to get into that conversation, but I think that people should realize that it's a symbol of a certain part of our lives and a certain part of oppression that we were able to overcome. And I don't think people think critically or think that deeply sometimes about it.
No, we don't. No, especially in the age of TikTok. We definitely don't. I was reading an article in today's New York Times, Thursday, June the 13th, and they were talking about what they're calling now brain rot. They're studying brain rot, and by they I mean scientists, people, and they're talking about how when you scroll TikTok or on X or Twitter or whatever, and you lose track of time, all of that contributes to what the scientists are calling brain rot. So where people use the shorthand that they see on social media and replace fully developed sentences and thoughts, it's giving short attention span. See that right there? That would be an example of brain rot. It's giving.
It's giving.
It's giving. As you would tell Adonis, no, use your words. No, it's giving. It's giving brain rot. So at any rate, no, people are not thinking very deeply about this. People are not thinking deeply about this.
Oh my God!
It's giving short attention span. It's giving devolution.
But that's a struggle though, Doc. And the reason why I say it's a struggle because some people, the only place that they're going to get information or acquire knowledge is on TikTok. It's not everybody.
No.
But a good majority of people, they go to see the news, they go to see what's happening, they go to find information all from these social media platforms. So sometimes it's kind of like if you don't make some type of content geared towards the right stuff, or that's a little bit clickbait, or that we can create a, 1 minute to 30-second clip or something, some people won't understand, or they'll be hit with the counter narratives of how Juneteenth is a fake holiday. It's a made up holiday. But this is
every holiday ever made up.
That's what I was about to say. This is where you get into where people don't think critically. Every holiday is a made up holiday.
Every holiday.
It's a holidays are made up. Like you decide
Absolutely.
what you want to declare for people to take the day off and not work, really, right? Or you
Exactly. Or work, because originally Juneteenth, and still very many places, particularly in the South, particularly in Texas, Juneteenth always involved labor. Like the Juneteenth, you eat on Juneteenth. So they would start cooking food a week
yes.
in advance, particularly when you're talking about digging a barbecue pit and cooking a whole cow or some hogs. I mean, you got to start that like 4 or 5 days before. They would then do all the cooking and all the baking and all the preparation. In fact, in class with card number 119, Dr. Sunyata Amin and I talked about all the red foods, the red soda, the red cake, all of those things, and the significance of red, which goes back to Africa. But on the day itself, they had a Juneteenth parade typically. I'm glad to hear Philly will have one today, this week. They had speeches, often sermons, because the Juneteenth celebrations will be held on church grounds. In fact, one of the founders of Juneteenth in Texas, Jack Yates was his nickname. Jack Yates was a man in the ministry, so he and several of his friends bought the land that became the first place in Houston, right the year after Juneteenth was read out, to have the first Juneteenth celebration. And Jack Yates, by the way, is the name of the high school right there in the Third Ward of Houston, across the street from Texas Southern University, and down the street from Dr. Allen's dentistry practice. In fact, I was talking to my friend Felicia Rashad about that, because she and her sister, Debbie Allen is their maiden name. That was their daddy. Their mother's still alive. She's over 100 years old. And he practiced dentistry right in the shadow of that area, which is called Emancipation Park. I'm saying all that to say that Juneteenth wasn't a day off. It was a day of labor. They came together to celebrate, but they also came together to mark progress. What have we built? What have we acquired? And as they ran the races and had the parades and ate the food, the speeches that were said, most of them sermons, were also, this is what we have built and this is what we're going to build. So even when we think about Juneteenth as a day off, it's taking it out of the governance formation and putting it in who we are to other people. It's not a day off. And so, yeah, that's exactly right. And so it was made up to mark progress, to remember, and also to plan for the future and assess what we have done so far.
Listen, I just like how you smoothly slid in there your friend, Felicia Rashad.
My friend, that's my friend. Yeah, one thing I respect about Felicia Rashad is, is she your friend? She your friend. Some of y'all know what I'm talking about. So the point is this, I mean, it doesn't matter. You know what I'm saying? I mean, and that's important to understand too, because there is a sense of solidarity.
Absolutely.
And I respect and acknowledge the fact that what you said, that we have to speak in a shorthand sometimes in the world we live in now, which is why I would say, if you want to think about Juneteenth in a shorthand, if you think of Kwanzaa car crash into the 4th of July, it'll make you mad, but it's also will fit in those little transcriptions that I see now at the bottom of these YouTube shorts and TikToks. Pro tip, don't let AI,
very fancy. Yes.
Don't let AI do that for you. At least go back and edit, because I've seen several times when we've been in conversation and other conversations, people will take a clip of something I said and I'll see the little words pop up at the bottom, the captions, and I'm so clear that AI did it because it's phonetic. It's like, that's not that word. And I just say,
yes.
boo, boo, boo. I'm like, y'all didn't even go back and edit what the AI did. It's important. It's important to do that. Don't let AI, because see, then that reflects on you and me.
Absolutely.
Like we said something that we didn't know we were talking about. No.
Yes, I agree. I see that sometimes too.
Don't let artificial intelligence. And by the way, that's an oxymoron. But anyway, really, is it intelligent? No, it's artificial. So artificial intelligence, like it's saying dry, wet. It's like, what are you like? What? Anyway, just edit it.
Manufactured intelligence.
Manufactured, yeah, manufactured something. Manufactured consent. I'm not sure, but either way, if you're going to clip it, go back and edit.
Yes.
And I don't know if your students have been doing this. My young people have been asking me. Now they'll ask me if we watch something in class. I'll put up a clip or something, and they'll say, "Can you turn on the captions?" And I'm like, "No, there are no captions." And then when there are captions, I'm, "No, I'm not turning these captions on. Turn your ears." What
That's
are you serious?
interesting.
You want me to turn on captions when you can hear what's being said? Can you not understand what's being said? I mean, yeah, but we also want to read it. No, you want to be lazy. No, we're not turning the captions on.
Well,
So
they're used to that style, right? So if you're scrolling through sometimes and you don't have the sound on,
right,
you read what's being said. So
like when you're
I
sitting in class and you don't want somebody to know that you're listening, right? You just want to see the words.
our
Okay.
kids are
No. Anyway,
being,
I'm
they're
not
being
against it.
translated with a different type of learning. But I'm
Yeah, it is
open
a different
to
type of learning. That's true.
I'm open to, like, they got to be able to be versatile, got to be able to do both, and we got to be able to reach.
No, I
So
agree. But
I'm open
fortunately I'm
to
too old though. I'm too old to
it. You definitely
have.
elder,
Well, no,
definitely.
I miss a lot of phone calls because I'm reading.
But yeah, I mean, I'm right now like looking in the background. Like when he was
Oh
like,
yes, yeah.
I took stuff to storage. I'm like, yeah, how many books? Because I know
Oh
that's
no,
what you took.
honestly, Shanna, I took probably, let me see, three, two. I probably took about 8,000 books to storage.
Y'all hear that?
That's in addition to probably the 40,000 that I already got in storage.
And
So I mean, this is because we're building a library. Because at the end of the day, there is no replacement for slow learning. There's no replacement. The speed and technology is all very important. Books are technology. They're all forms of technology, but there's no replacement. And we see it now because even with Juneteenth, it doesn't matter how many times we hear something until we own that knowledge by sitting with it and thinking about it, it doesn't become real.
yes, and understanding what it means. So when hearing you talk about Juneteenth, and what it means, and then me giving like, I don't think people think critically about it. The reason why I think that's important for us to understand and for us to realize is when you gave us the history of kind of how, yes, this marked the celebration, this marked the time in life, but it marked like, okay, we made it here, this is what we did, but this is what we're going to do. I always feel
Yes.
like the what are we going to do part is missing from our African traditions now.
Hmm.
It is taken, I think that we have consumed ourselves in a way in the governance structure. We are starting to see ourselves or behave the way in which people see us and not in the way that we are
Yes,
to ourselves.
that's right.
I think that's dangerous. I think that's very, very dangerous.
Of
Um,
course,
Especially the fact,
because
again.
the
Mhm.
us that they the us that they not like. I'm not sure who that us is. Anyway, but go ahead.
What you mean?
They not like us. Okay, who is the us?
I knew what you were saying, but
Who is the
I
who is
need
the
you
us? Because you the same brother that said niggus and the N word were the same, which let me know you don't know a damn thing about linguistics. But I see children saying they not like us. They not like us. I'm like, no, but I know that if you took if you took a class. If you took a class, you didn't get an A minus. But the whole point is that I just want to know who the us is, and what you're saying is very important. That's why I just want to inject it as you were talking about it. You know, if by the us you mean something in a hip hop battle, okay, yeah, that's fine. The convention is good, the modality is brilliant, but if there's not content there, then the us you're creating is a figment of the white imagination. I mean, it's not a us. It's a. I'm not sure.
So this is complex, but then it's not at the same time.
Right.
So and it depends on who you're talking to. And the reason why I say that this to me goes hand in hand with the way that people look at, interpret, or consume Juneteenth. So
Yes.
if you're talking about Kendrick Lamar and they're not like us, and what he
And I
means by
am,
that,
and I
right?
absolutely am.
But you
Yes.
can, if you're talking to a mass of people who are not educated on certain subjects, who are not educated
Yes.
on who they are to understand what us means, or even he may not understand what his level of education, meaning he may have been raised with Black pride,
Oh, no question. That's
black
clear.
black solidarity,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
trying to understand in the ways of who he is, and and being a king, like that kind of stuff, and then having
Absolutely.
the adversity to, or being adverse to Drake and using the word nigga and stop trying to be black and perpetrate our culture when you got a white mama. Like all of that stuff, right? You can tell that this
Drake
brother,
is not black, right?
I mean, according to Kendrick, if you're asking me if he's black, his daddy black. Like, so.
Yeah, that's what I mean. But what to the point you're making, once you accept somebody else's definition of you, it's a wrap.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
Yeah.
So
So if Drake is a white man, what you gonna do with Nicole Hannah Jones?
is she a white woman? Right?
Well,
But
mama white. You know what I'm saying? And I'm saying she black. Drake is black. Kendrick's black. These are the same Negroes that say the black community is not a monolith, but they not like us. I agree wholeheartedly, depending on what you mean by they and what you mean by us. But I'm not clear at all about what you mean by they and us, because we're living in a society where Drake is bigger than 1 million people in the world. And I work at a university where they actually gave, forget taking it back, they gave Sean Combs an honorary degree.
oh my
With
God.
everybody in full knowledge of who he was at the time, and the faculty screaming bloody murder. Like, what are you doing? But it took a video to confirm what everybody in the whole world already knew. So you say they not like us. I just want to know who you talking about, because until something comes out, my thing is, you can't make a whole song about somebody predating on children and not have known about it before you made the song. What's going on? You know what I'm saying? When you say they not like us, I'm saying they who make money off of hip hop battles and make millions off of the downloads, or they who call something out in real time. Because I know when you talk about Juneteenth, you're talking about Africans who literally fought their way out of enslavement. Who held each other to a moral standard. Everybody wasn't a saint, but when you had problems in the community, there's emerging out of enslavement. One of the problems was not solidarity. Yeah, see people running over saying, I'm going to pick the side against our community. Now, were there people like that? Of course there were. But the more we study, the more we understand Juneteenth isn't just the name of a holiday. Juneteenth stood for a set of principles, a set of a standard. You want to call it moral standard, ethical standard, spiritual standard. And that's the only reason I bring it up. Not to critique anyone, but to remind us that at the core of Juneteenth is remembering. And when you don't remember, the they and the us could be anything or anybody, because you love our people, you want to do something, but just sit back and watch. How have our definitions of who we are, to the point you're raising, blended into who other people say we are? And that's how you end up with ball players and entertainers walking the halls of Congress talking about black liberation. That's how you end up with a Sean Carter siphoning tax dollars off and giving them to anti-black people, and you got to send council members of Philadelphia Council like Isaiah Thomas to Harrisburg to say, wait a minute, what are you doing? That's how you end up with Curtis Jackson, as we went from the Supremes, the Miracles, the Four Tops, to 50 Cent walking onto the grounds of the United States Capitol, taking pictures and cheesing with open white supremacists, like the Speaker of the House of Representatives, or the guy out of Louisiana, Steve Scalise, who is Klan adjacent. But Curtis is down there because he don't know nothing about it, because his us is the us of power. You understand? So I mean, this is not in the spirit of Juneteenth. So I mean, I'm saying, we can be better. We have been better, and when we remember, we will be better in the future. But that right there, that's trash. That stuff right there, to again bring people into the shorthand that they use and such, But that's right here.
Y'all heard it here first. Dr. Carr about to drop a track called "Y'all Ain't Like Me." Okay?
No. You ain't like us. You ain't like us. You ain't like us. Not they ain't like us. You ain't like us. You drop a little, J. Mason Brewer and Jack Yates in it. Because remember, who went to Jack Yates High School? Who migrated? Jack Yates came from the East Coast. When he moved to Texas, Jack Yates was born in Gloucester County, Virginia. There's another brother whose mother's from North Carolina who moved them to Texas in the Cooney homes, who then left Texas after he was trying to get his life together, and he ended up dying in North Minneapolis, under the knee of a punk killer cop who's still in jail. That young man's name was George Floyd. George Floyd was a graduate of Jack Yates High School, right there in the shadow of Emancipation Square, where the first Juneteenth took place in Houston. The more we remember, people may have forgotten. Can you imagine this, Shane? I mean, talk about brain rot. It was only 4 years ago. Juneteenth becomes important to the United States in some ways because they throwing everything in the street trying to slow down a multiracial, multi-class reckoning that was taking place in the streets. And now it seems like it was a million years ago. There would be no Juneteenth federal holiday if Breonna Taylor had been killed in her bed, if Ahmaud Arbery had been stalked and killed in Georgia. There wouldn't be a Juneteenth holiday today if Big George Floyd hadn't died in North Minneapolis on Memorial Day weekend in 2020. You see what I'm saying? I mean, so we're talking about Juneteenth now because we always knew about Juneteenth. Y'all trying to slow down something. And the longer we get away from that and don't remember, the more it gets commingled into something that's absolute garbage. And you'll have black people saying, I'll celebrate Juneteenth. Why? Because they created, it's like people say they gave us Black History Month, and we've talked about that. It gets confused when we don't remember. When you say they not like us, all I want to know is who is the they, because the they could be you if you don't remember. All right, see, that's one of the things you could clip and put in the little TikTok. They could be you if you don't remember. Anyway,
if you don't remember or you just don't know. If you
just don't know.
You just don't know.
That's right.
I'm definitely thinking about, that was a great example when you say somebody like, I don't celebrate that because they gave it to us. Then you don't know
exactly.
You don't know who gave it. You don't know where it came from then. If you think they gave us anything. Or they gave us permission to celebrate something that's a part of our heritage and our culture. They didn't give us anything. It was already ours. They gave you the day off from work, but they did not give you the holiday. People taught you how to celebrate this day and be in community with each other.
That's right.
So I think
and I love having a red, black, and green flag. I love having a red, black, and green flag.
Which flag you like better? You like the one with the white explosion, or you like the red, black, and green flag?
No. The one with the white explosion says a thing. People say that's the official Juneteenth flag. Okay, let's just clear this up. There is no official Juneteenth flag because there is no official nationwide Juneteenth committee. There isn't. Ron Brown did it in Philly for years, but he wasn't the people in Buffalo. And they knew each other. They talked to each other. There's no official Juneteenth flag. I like the red, black, and green because it speaks to something that we created, that Marcus and Amy Garvey and the Universal Negro Improvement Association created.
The international struggle.
The international struggle that in the 1960s and 70s, the US organization remixed it and put the black on top. Okay, people get mad about that, but still you got red for the blood and struggle, black for the people, and green for the future and prosperity. Right. It's our flag. Most of the flags of Africa had those colors. Most of the flags of the Caribbean have some combination of those colors, sometimes with a little yellow in or sometimes, but that's our flag. And for those who would say, well, Juneteenth is about America, so it has to be red, white, and blue. That's the people that start in 1619. And that's fine. I understand. But even if you want to start with who came over here captive, it wouldn't be 1619. You'd have to go back to 1526 with a dude named Esteban, who was in the Yucatan Peninsula with the Spanish. What you going to do with little Stephen? And it's interesting to me because when you talk about Texas and Juneteenth, you're talking about, there's a reason why they call Houston and Galveston and Port Arthur and all them right there on the bay, on the Gulf of Mexico, the third coast. If you spend any time in the Gulf Coast area, if you're in New Orleans, if you're in Houston or you're in Galveston, what you'll find is the culture there, the Africa there, is a mix with various European cultures, including Spanish-speaking European cultures. It's a mix with the indigenous people of the region. And what you see is it's a very different narrative than a boat showing up in Port Comfort, Virginia in 1619. Juneteenth captures, in fact, there's a little book that I recommend for folks. I don't know if I brought it in here with me today, but it's called The African Texans. The African Texans. It's a small book. Texas A&M University Press did it about 20 years ago. And it's part of a series Texas A&M did. They did the Asian Texans, the European Texans, or white Texans, as you might call it, the indigenous Texans, the Latino Texans, the Indian Texans. And for all people of African descent, they didn't say the African American Texans. They didn't say the Negro or the Black Texans. They said the African Texans. And they walk you through, in a very plain language way, the different types of African people who were brought into Texas, beginning in what is now 15, when we say the 1526 with Estevan, but continuing through the Africans who didn't go through enslavement. Because Texas, that state, is the home of millions of Africans whose people did not go through enslavement, including, well, hundreds of thousands, including in places like Texas and Dallas, huge populations of Nigerians, for example, who came into, is that, well, and people say, well, if we get reparations, they shouldn't get it because they didn't go through enslavement. Okay, you've opened your mouth, your whole brain is on display, and it gives us an opportunity to educate you to understand that anti-Black racism, as Dr. Du Bois teaches us, is global. You're not going to solve the challenges of African people by splitting us up. It would literally go against the spirit and the history and the memory and the effort of Africans since we have been enslaved. The Africans didn't discriminate. When it came time to that whip, everybody got it. And I don't know, you probably have seen this since we were all together last year. Again, one of the things holidays allow us to do, rituals allow us to do, is measure where we were last year, look at where we are today, what has happened since, and stitch it together to all the other years. Well, we saw recently that the Negro Leagues, where the white Major League Baseball wants to put the Negro League records in white Major League Baseball. I celebrate the recognition, but I also reject the idea that you can ever do that completely. But guess what? So do they. They know they can't ever compile all the records, but I bring it up for this reason. They got Josh Gibson hitting maybe less than 200 home runs they're going to count. But everybody in Negro Leagues, all the Negro League historians and all the people who played, and I say, he hit over 900 home runs, but you're not going to count all the rest of them because you don't have official records. Okay, fine. That's not a problem. But this is what the point I wanted to make. They say, here we are, and there are so few Black baseball players in Major League Baseball. And that makes my skin crawl. 40% of Major League Baseball is non-white, and most of those are Afro-Latinos. The Negro Leagues had whole teams from Cuba. They would go to Cuba and Venezuela and play in Puerto Rico, Dominican.
Absolutely.
What you're not going to do, white people and confused Negroes, what y'all not going to do is segregate Africans from other Africans. You know what I'm saying? And then we start doing it. Oh, I don't know what happened to the Black ball players. Go look in Texas at the Houston Astros roster, and you see all them Africans from Cuba and Dominican Republic, but you don't count none of them. So your own eyes, are you going to believe that BS, or your lying eyes when you see a Black man standing in front of you and say, you ain't Black?
I was going to say, well, here's the problem. Here's the problem. And I've said this before in the very beginning when we started this podcast. It is very easy for somebody to deny Blackness. It's very easy for somebody to say, like, I'm not African American. But what you can never deny is that you are African at your core.
Right.
Because where you come from. Like
right.
that unifies us all. Like
unifies us all.
You can't deny that. You can't deny the fact that you're African. That unifies us all.
You can be both.
Yes.
You can be both. In fact, you are both.
Yes. But I think the problem is when you start to, and we all know this, right? That the whole race is a social construct and all of that creates lines of division. But what you can't say is you can't say you're not African because you are. Like you just, you can't deny that. There's no arguing that. You can't, like, how can you tell me that you're not African, right? Meaning I can look at you and see you African, but then if we go together and study your lineage, you're African.
You're African.
And you can say like, oh, well, I was born and raised in Cuba. I was born and raised wherever. Yes, that's where you were born. But because of your heritage and your lineage, like, you're African. Like, that's where your people from. So if you have a baby and you go to America, if you're Cuban, you have a baby, you go to America and you have a baby in America, you're going to say that baby is Cuban. That baby wasn't born in Cuba, right? You're not going to say my baby is American. He's not Cuban. No, you're going to say my baby is Cuban American. You, my friend, are Afro-Cuban, right? And that baby has that lineage and that history. So I always say this when people start to argue about being Black, being white, I'm not this, I'm not. What you are, though, is African. Like, we're not arguing about that. That's not a debatable. That's not a debatable point. Like that's not something I'm about to argue with you about. You are African. You can
You are
deny it.
African.
You can deny it all you want, all you like, but you African. Like,
And
sorry.
who's not going to deny it is the police either. So you're denying it, but we're not denying it, and the police not denying it. So therefore,
that's
it's
the
not
thing.
going. What the hell?
You can distance yourself from blackness all you want. The police like, yeah, but you're African, ain't you? Let me stomp a mud hole in you. Like,
please
you're
let me
African.
do that. And look, and guess what? Martha Ann Alito, Sam Alito's wife. Sam Alito's wife said, yeah, I'm just bringing it up because she said, I'm German. And you know us Germans, we gonna get you back. She said, when she's talking about flying the flag, I'm like, women, did a sitting justice of Supreme Court's wife, we'll set aside the woman of Clarence Thomas's dreams, who, had her own fantasies about overturning the government, but did the wife of a sitting Supreme Court justice just use her German heritage as to make the point that if you hit her, she gonna hit you back?
Like in America.
I'm not sure. Okay, let's separate the fact out that that's probably not the best analogy to talk about revenge, particularly since the Treaty of Versailles was signed in a car in Paris, and then Hitler brought the same car back when they capitulated. I wouldn't be using that German heritage line as a metaphor for revenge, but the fact that she says that I'm German underscores the point that you're making. Joe Biden said I'm Irish. And guess what? You could be Irish and American. We're Africans. You could be African. People mistake what the United States is. Juneteenth is a marker for Black self-determination. It is now it's a federal holiday now, which means if you are going to acknowledge Juneteenth, you're not going to make up a lie about a melting pot or a salad bowl, or we was all friends. The reason there's a Juneteenth is because there was enslavement. And the reason there continues to be a need for a Juneteenth is because the afterlives of enslavement continue. And so, either we're going to build a new country. Here's the other here's the TikTok short line, right? Either we're going to build a new country or it ain't going to be no country. That's the bottom line. Either there's going to be a new formation created where everyone can live together and grow together with our own special contributions, or something else is going to happen. And U.S. history is full of the something else.
Something else. I was just going to say that. What is it? What is it? Something else? Because there's always something else here. So what is?
There's always something else. The something else is the U.S. Revolution. Something else is the War of 1812. Something else is the Fugitive Slave Act. Something else is the Civil War. Something else is the end of Reconstruction and Redemption. There's something else is the Black Codes and Jim Crow. There's something else is the Civil Rights Movement and Long Freedom Movement. There's something else is white lash and the end of all those policies and programs. Because since the time we were together last year and this conversation we're having, the Supreme Court overturned affirmative action, ended a woman's right to choose what to do with her own body. In other words, the something else is whenever people try to oppress other people, the something else happens because the something else is sparked by resistance. And we will resist. We will resist. Always. We're not just going to die.
But that's who we
always.
Are.
Human beings will resist.
That's who we are.
That's who we are as a species.
Yes, as a people. Yeah. Absolutely.
So why would you expect that? It's so funny between last year and this year. Like I said, they had the Juneteenth concert, and Mama Opa Lee, who they call the mother of Juneteenth, who fought so hard to get this holiday. Mama Opa Lee was at the White House, and we stood there and we watched her say, "We are the strongest country in the United States." And people think she misspoke. Maybe she did, but I think she's talking to Black people. We're the strongest country now. And then she said,
if you like us, you understood exactly what she meant.
If you like us, you know what she mean, right? And Kamala Harris, Vice President Harris, was standing right next to her at the podium. Then she said, we either going to get health care, we either going to have education, jobs for everybody. We got to do something about the environment. Either all that's going to happen, or we're all going to hell in a handbasket. This little lady about 4'9", she said she stand up on the podium with the seal of the president. We all going to hell in a handbasket. And the vice president was like, and on that note, you know, she laughed. No, not on that note. Either we gonna get health care and education and jobs and save the environment, or we all going to hell in a handbasket. You can't do nothing to Mama Oprah Lee. That's your mama. You the vice president, but she outranks you,
Yep,
sis. So
absolutely.
it was a beautiful thing. Either we're gonna be together as a species, or everybody gonna take an L. That's what we have to understand.
Yep. Agree 100%. You really out here today. You was where my
No,
mindset was today, Dr.
let me
Carr.
stop because I'm
Yes, you
amped. They're not like us.
I'm cracking up. I am really cracking up that you brought that up.
I mean, look, I see. Have you seen the videos? You got elementary school children. They not like every word they know. You ask about Juneteenth, they be like, "What's that?" We facing a crisis.
We are facing a crisis. But this is something we've been facing and been
Yes,
fighting. And the
yes,
reason why, right? Like people can name "They Not Like Us" and probably not quote any other of the 3 diss tracks that he put out.
right.
The beat, right? It's the beat. And again, but we could connect that too to who we are as a people, right? It's that the rhythm, beats, all of that is natural, right? Like that's
It
in
is.
us. That's who we are. But
It
again,
is.
lack of education, you wouldn't understand. Like, why am I bopping to this like this? Because it's who you are. Why can I catch
How
this
about that?
rhythm? It's in your DNA. Why? Because you African.
Absolutely,
Why? Because you
absolutely.
African. And they
I
are
mean,
arguing with that.
arguing with it, and we have to be very careful then, as you say, because that beat is a delivery system. We brought that beat with us, and so when you start talking about that beat, what you say over that beat becomes that much more important because it's going directly into your consciousness.
So
And so,
we about to run up on time, but I got 2 points that I
please,
want to get your thoughts on. So one, to to talk about Juneteenth, like the thing that continues to ring in my head, right? Like I think people need to realize that it is an African holiday, right? Like so
it
it's something,
absolutely is.
but it's something that should also be globally celebrated, right? Like
Yeah.
because if we're going to be a
Well,
people,
it has partnerships. I mean,
hmm
in 30 seconds, when you say Juneteenth, it's of a piece with Emancipation Day here in the United States, and it's of a piece with Decoration Day, which became Memorial Day because we were honoring the ancestors who struggled and fought for us. It's of a piece with African Liberation Day, which is the third weekend in May every year, which is about global solidarity. It's of a piece of African Independence Days and Caribbean Independence Days all over, the rights that usually take place in the summer around August. In other words, Juneteenth is part of a network of Black self-determination holidays. And you're absolutely right. They are global. They are global
but
celebrations.
if we look at that, right, we should be partying all year. And the reason why I say that as a black people
No
is
question.
because we would love to make the statement like none of us is free if we aren't all free. Absolutely. So then we should be celebrating every last one of everybody's triumphs all over the world. We should be partying all year every time we overcame an oppressor.
That's right.
So that we understand our struggle is connected and that we are in solidarity as a
That's
people.
right. And
So
we have to and be mindful always, like Juneteenth. These are moments of celebration that we created. If the
mhm.
world wants to share in observing them, fine. But we created them. Martin Luther King was killed April the 4th, 1968. The following January was the first Martin Luther King birthday that was celebrated. Black people started taking the day off. They did not wait for a federal, that happened in the 80s. They started taking the day off. Then some cities started declaring it. Then they moved, Brother Al Edwards, who was a Texas state legislator, who finally got Texas to make Juneteenth a state holiday in the 80s. The same thing. We didn't wait. I mean, look, people take their own birthdays off. But for our heroes, we started taking the day off. Martin Luther King's birthday is when? January 5th. I'm taking the day off. But you're making a very important point. We don't wait for other people to recognize when we have things that we value every day. That's exactly right. Every
And
day is a
and
day.
please understand, even in the example that you gave, when we wait for other people to recognize, but we've already been celebrating, it's some type of tragedy that happens.
Oh, no
So to
question.
make a federal holiday is at the hands of somebody's death each time, right?
Isn't that
So
something?
ain't that crazy?
Oh,
Ain't that crazy?
oh my God.
Gotta
You know, it's
shed
funny.
blood, gotta lose a life in order to get a reward. But again, that's what happens when you're waiting on the oppressor to give
But
you
you know,
something.
it's funny you should say that because there's a book I'm looking at here, Blood Sacrifice in the Nation, Totem Rituals in the American Flag, Carolyn Marvin and David Engel. It's a book I kind of reread around Juneteenth every year. You can see a blood sacrifice in the nation. You see the white lady with her,
I was gonna say
you
that
know,
picture is something.
oh yeah, yeah. I wouldn't call her Caitlin Clark because Caitlin Clark is out here catching strays because
She definitely
Caitlin
catches.
Clark,
She
she
catches
catches
strays.
straight,
She
all
catches
the
strays.
strays.
She catches
you know,
strays. And
she,
I don't necessarily always be saying I feel bad for but
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I
This
don't feel bad for her. I don't feel good for her. I just know that the quickest way, I mean, Caitlin uh, Clark, you should probably take a page from Paige Buckers up there at UConn. And, you know, when they stick a mic in your face, say, look, what about all these black women? I mean, and that way, now what you're going to lose that MAGA fan base who can't spell basket or ball and you can't even spell arena, doesn't even know where Iowa is on a map, and certainly can't find the Indianapolis Fieldhouse where you play. But you might lose some of them, you know. But the point is that you can stop catching strays very easily. You know what I'm saying? It's not hard, Caitlin. You can stop catching strays. Say, y'all stop. Don't, you can't make me the MAGA queen. I don't believe none of that what you talking about. It's not your fault, Caitlin, because you live in a society like we live in that where race people are obsessed with it, but you can stop catching those strays. But in this book, Blood Sacrifice in the Nation, what they're writing about is that the rituals in this country that we call holidays that are most invested around blood sacrifice are the ones that give America the meaning. So it's Veterans Day, it's Memorial Day. It's like when blood was shed, like
yes.
they got a whole chapter in here about on the ritual days of Veterans Day and Memorial Day, they go to the cemetery and honor the ancestors. They put the wreaths down, this kind of thing. Juneteenth is about blood sacrifice. Centuries, we were in the death camps, the concentration camps. People say, don't make that analogy. Yeah, I'm going to make that analogy. Do you know what a plantation was? See, plantation's kind of soft. Plantations,
Mm-hmm.
oh, you sing Negro spirituals and you picking a little cotton and you sit on the porch and play your fiddle. No, these are death camps. They are concentration camps. Generations of our people were slaughtered. Black women, every generation of black women for centuries were raped to produce more labor. You know what I'm saying? We're not going to soft shoe this. So when you start talking about Juneteenth, this is a recognition of blood sacrifice. And so if you want to celebrate Juneteenth, then you have to recognize the blood sacrifice of black people, not to build America, to survive, to thrive. Because guess what? Our enemy was not overseas. Our enemy was the President of the United
United
States.
States.
Our enemy was the Supreme Court. Our enemy then and now was the police. In other words, our enemy was you. They not like us. Who is they? I want to know, bro. Because if you talk, I ain't talking about Drake. You know what I'm saying? Because Drake get pulled over by the police too. Drake and Kendrick in the back seat of a car laughing because their beef and made them both $1 million. Y'all gonna get stopped by the police because you both black. And at that point, the they and the us gets real clear real quick. So
Mm-hmm.
let's end the foolishness around this thing. We mark Juneteenth because it's about our self-determination. It's not about beef, as Mos Def says. Some beef is big and some beef is small, but what y'all call beef is not beef at all.
That is the truth.
Anyway.
Bars. Bars.
No, that's Mos Def.
Bars.
You know,
Dr. Carr.
Mos Def said beef is Iraq, the West Bank, and Gaza Strip. That's beef. You understand? What's beef?
Well,
That's beef.
it's true.
Beef is
It's
not Drake and
true.
Kendrick.
But this last point I want to make, and this, I mean, we're not gonna be able to like really hit on this, might be another show. But I think it has to go to do with the levels of freedom and a responsibility of freedom. So when we talk about Juneteenth being a symbol of self determination, I think that goes into like it's levels of freedom, right? So we got out of chattel slavery, but we're still not free. We're free from that type of oppression, but there's still many oppressions that we have to overcome. But even within the system of racism, many of us are on different levels of freedom. And I think it's important for us to focus on, well, depending on your level of freedom, what is your responsibility? Um, how are you responsible for giving back or standing in your level of freedom? So we talk about Kendrick and Drake, who are very privileged, right? At this point, because of the money they have, the access they have, even the ability they have to educate the masses of young people with the tools that they have at hand. What is their responsibility in that? What should they be doing with that? But
I don't think they have one unless they say they have one, because that is one definition of freedom: the ability to do what you want, to move through the world on your terms.
but
So,
but do you think our ancestors would agree with that?
oh, I think that there are many ancestors who would agree
Well,
that
let me
there's no
say, do you think our
consensus.
freedom fighter ancestors would agree
Oh,
with that?
absolutely not. Of
Okay,
course
I'm
not.
about to say I wasn't
No,
taught that.
no, no. But they not like us. So that's I mean, that's what I'm saying. You got to tell me who the they is and who the us is. That don't mean. I mean, those are empty signifiers until you populate them with substance. So when you say they not like us, I'm sure Araminta or Harriet Ross Tubman would look forward at this beef and say, "Oh, you not like
like
me,
me.
right? They not like you. They not like you. What are y'all doing?" So I guess what I'm saying is there's a definition of freedom that says I am free to do what I want. But once you start talking about freedom beyond yourself, now you're talking about a collective definition. So that someone says, for example, I am against anyone terminating a pregnancy. Okay. Are you a male? I am. Okay, that's very nice. Thanks for your opinion. I'm a female, and I want the option in case my baby has a birth defect or there's something going wrong, or I just decide early on, oh, wait, I don't want, okay, I want that option. Freedom means, collective freedom means I respect your right to make decisions and you respect my right to make decisions. Dr. Du Bois said freedom for Black people in this country and the world means we should be free to ride whatever bus we want to ride, whatever train, eat wherever we want to eat, build whatever society we want to build. Black women in Atlanta want to give out $20,000 grants. And here comes Stephen Miller and his vermin-minded Project 2025 banging people, suing, saying, you can't do that because you're discriminating against white men. It's my money. I want to be free to give my money to some Black women since you ain't gave no money to Black women for venture capital. I thought you liked that kind of freedom. No. Because I'm a white supremacist. I want to be free to oppress you because it makes me feel better about myself. Because when I look in the mirror, I don't like what I see. So I understand Stephen. I can understand Stephen Miller saying that. I mean, but the point is this, and people like him, if you pay very close attention to that kind of mentality, their idea of freedom is oppressing other people so they can feel good about themselves. And so there's a level of freedom that engages in the politics of oppression. I want to be free to discriminate. I don't want to bake a cake for gay couples, or I want to come in and say, even though I don't have any children in this school, I want to pull these books off the shelf because I just feel like it. I just feel like it. Okay, people like Byron Donalds. I want to be free to have an interracial marriage, but I also want to be free to say that Black people were better in Jim Crow. No, Byron. No, Congressman. Because if we go back to Jim Crow, you couldn't marry the girl of your dreams because in the state where you met her, it was illegal to marry interracially. What are you talking about? So there are levels of freedom that rely on oppression because people, their idea of freedom means they got to do something to somebody else or the whole groups of people. So when we start talking about Juneteenth, finally, this is the definition of freedom that Black people, we want to be free to practice our culture, to practice our faith, to go out and make as much money as we want, to help other people, to build. And we want to be free to do that without you having your foot on our neck. And if you agree with that, there are white people who came to Juneteenth celebrations, who come to, they came to them right after Juneteenth started in the 1870s and 80s. They would come to Texas and they would be like, okay, we're not trying to stop y'all. Can we come? And they say, yeah, you can come. You can come. You can give a little speech if you're a politician. I know you want to, but let's be very clear for all the people who don't believe in that, who want a country where you can oppress, guess what? You're not like us. And in this respect, you want to oppress. We want freedom for everybody. And so it's a very clear thing. Now, if they're going to put that, if Kendrick and Drake want to do a collab and drop a kind of, joint where they say they not like us and make that the point, I'll be the first one to learn all the words. But until then, yeah, I don't know what they're talking about.
Dr. Carr, listen, we are coming up on time. This has been an episode and it has been too long. I mean, too long. Too long, but we miss
Too long.
you.
We miss
Listen,
you. I miss you too.
shout out to all our co-conspirators out there watching today. You have been
That's
listening
right.
to Building the Black Educator Pipeline podcast, the show that's hosted by the Center for Black Educator Development with the help of our partners at Brightbeam. Make sure you subscribe and listen to wherever you get your favorite podcasts. See you next time, everybody. Peace.